Welcome and thanks for coming, everyone. What we're going to do tonight is talk about some advanced care for our kittens. I'm Carolyn Day. I've been fostering kittens for maybe like 8 years now. I've been doing it for a while. And this is Stephanie from Humane, the foster coordinator.
Hi, I'm Stephanie McDowell. I've been with the Humane Society now since 2019. I started as an animal care tech and now I'm the foster coordinator. So I'm like the liaison between medical and you guys.
So building on what we covered in the basic workshop, what we're going to do today is look at some of the advanced kind of ideas, which primarily you'll see will focus more on medical things that can go on. So they're the canary in the coal mine type ideas that we're looking at in this class here. So we're going to briefly go over the intakes and what's the difference between a preemie kitten versus a normal kitten. What do we do when they're that young and delicate? We're going to look at poop. We'll have a whole discussion about poop. There's no 8-year-olds in here to go, also, importantly, we'll talk about how you can give advanced support to the kittens that go beyond just feeding them. And so we'll talk about giving them fluids and things like that. And then we'll talk about development issues and some of those red flags that we need to watch out for. So as a reminder, when we have the intake of the kittens and they haven't been given to from the medical staff, and you would know this having rescued the feral kittens, it's fluids, fleas, get rid of the fleas so they're not anemic, give them fluids, and then you would feed them. So you want to warm them up, make sure they're nice and warm. And we talked about in that class, remember, looking and assessing their condition. Is their coat looking nice and shiny once you've given them a bath in a couple of days? They're eating well? Are their eyes nice and clear? What is their energy level like? Do they have potentially any parasites? And by default, kittens under the age of 3 typically will have worms. They get them from ingestions of fleas by mama and that kind of stuff there. Also look at their gums. Are they pink or are they white? And if the gums are a little bit more on the whiter side, typically that means the kitten is a bit on the anemic side. So what I do is I make these assessments on a daily basis as my morning check-in with the kitten, as I'll look at the gums. Are they starting to go nice and red and pink there? Is their fur looking healthier over time? Or do they maybe have crusty patches or a wet nose look? And to me that's one of the signs, oh my gosh, this kitten might have ringworm. There.
So fun.
Yes. Do they have any bald spots? And also, when you may have found this too doing the feral kittens, that sometimes they would have a slightly misshapen head. So the kitten, on a healthy kitten, their skull is a ping pong ball. It's like a little solid ping pong ball shape, and literally the size of a ping pong ball, depending on their age. And some of the ferals aren't quite there, and so you want to kind of make alerts for those types of things. So I actually do a daily check-in, as I mentioned. So when I start of the day, I check the kitten, I weigh it, we do that first morning feeding, and then I just kind of, see how we're doing there. So neonatals, this is rare. It's probably we won't be giving you the preemies, but neonatals are that 0, so day 1, all the way through to 3 weeks of age. They're considered neonatals here, and they typically will be 100 grams. There, and if they're 100 grams plus, it means generally speaking they will survive. I'm putting an emphasis on generally, but not always, so we have to be prepared for that. Preemies are the premature kittens, and they're under 100 grams. And if you ever come across those, that's where you find yourself having to create an incubator. So give them a source of steam. Maybe you can put them in the bathroom with some, steam humidifier, that kind of thing. Keep them warm, extra warm, and you will be feeding them little droplets with tiny bits of formula there. They don't have any hair, preemies, and so that you'll see their hair is all claws, and you'll even see little claws start growing with the teeny there. And you'll also observe and smell them. They kind of smell different too, especially if they're starting to get health conditions there, especially the preemies. And you may recall I talked about probiotics because the kittens often have immune systems, the orphaned ones. And so this is an important step too for neonatals, especially in those first 3 weeks. I have found my foster kittens grow to be this ginormous cat. And I think it's because I've been giving them the primo stuff at the beginning there. So what is normal as a refresher They sleep 90% of the time, so a healthy kitten is a happy kitten. They're sleeping. They should be standing by day 10. Their eyes will start opening around sometimes a week, but more often around day 10 to the 14th day there. Be patient while the eyes are opening. It takes sometimes for some kittens a couple of days for their eyes to actually open. So you'll see them kind of doing this squint thing, and then maybe one eye will open and all types of stuff. So try not to mess with that unless obviously it's looking a bit crusty, but otherwise just let them do their thing. And once their eyes are open and developed, they still can't see distances. They can't judge that distance and more literally processing light and movement, and that's when their ears are also starting to open. So the kittens before then, their ear canals are closed, their eyes are closed, their retinas are still developing, even though they're outside of the womb there. They start doing voluntary urination and defecation by around 18 days to 3 weeks here. And I listed on here what would be normal temperatures for your kitties. So you'll see that they start getting a little bit hotter by week 3. And this again is one of the reasons why we talked about in the basic class that you want to keep those kittens nice and warm, give them a source of warmth that they can go to, whether it's a heating pad that you'll get here from Humane, or if you're in a pinch of even microwave bottles of water and wrap them in towels, or a sock with rice that you wrap up, that kind of stuff. So keep them warm. How do we take the temperature on a kitten? Does anyone want to take a guess? If I've got a kitten this big and my thermometer's this big. Anyone?
Is it in their butt?
So you could do it in their butt, but these little guys are like really little guys. So especially the neonatals, what I recommend is taking it actually under the arm there, and then adding +1 to whatever the temperature is. So just for the the littlies there, I don't know. I don't think I've ever taken an animal's. I know vets do it all the time.
Maybe a little invasive.
Yeah, maybe I'm too polite. I don't know. I use the underarm technique, and it's incredibly reliable. I had a kitten that she had pneumonia, and so she was really going through high fevers and changing. I was able to track all that, though, still doing the underarm technique, surprisingly. So, I would maybe suggest doing underarm there. And then I've listed the temperatures for us. Be mindful that in the first 3 weeks they are susceptible to dehydration. We talked about the snap test on the neck skin, so you want that to return quite quickly there. And they should be growing, I work in grams, so they should be approximately growing about 10 grams per day. Kind of watch that. And sometimes you might have a runt of a litter kitten, and so obviously that kitten might be a little bit behind its siblings, but as long as they're growing and eating and have the good energy and stuff, then that's their growth path there. And so take that into consideration. Now we talked a little bit, this was Aussie last class, and we talked about a URI. So let's start with this one first. This is a health concern kittens get. It's sometimes very contagious. I look at kittens that they are these little toddlers that run around in a daycare center, and they're all sharing the flu with each other, and they don't wash their hands. And so typically if you have one kitten in a URI, if you don't separate it from the litter pretty fast, then you're going to have everyone that will be sneezing. They will have crusty eyes there and snotty noses, trouble breathing and eating, and they'll have sometimes eye ulcers can even develop. So if you see things going on with the eyes, that's when you need to get them to an eye doctor to do the drops and everything there. If you see this in your house or with your kitten, so I always listen for sneezing. As soon as I hear sneezing, I'm like, oh, here we go. Because it's not like just a cold for us. I guess it's kind of like COVID, right? For us, it's like a URI for kittens because they have no immunity in a sense. So it really kind of gets them. And if they do have that, isolate them, use a warm, wet washcloth to help them with the crusty eyes, and also gently wipe their noses. They literally can't wipe their noses. One time I had a foster kitten and it was streaming out of the nose, and my job was to keep wiping the nose for it, and so it wouldn't have the rawness under its nose there. You can use little drops, the baby, I don't have them with me, but the little noses, which is what pediatric saline solution that you give to newborn babies, so you can use that on the kittens. So just put a little bit of little noses in to clear some of the congestion. and assist them with feeding and help them to breathe a little bit. Sometimes the kittens, they use their scent of smell to find their mom and to find their milk and actually to find their nipple. They all claim their own nipple on the mama. And so sometimes if I have a kitten that their nose is all stuffed up, I'll squirt a little bit of formula in the mouth so that they go, oh yeah, that's right. That's what I should probably have some more of that there. So if you have as I mentioned, a bathroom or some kind of humidifier, put them in there, keep it warm and spoil them. And you'll see over a couple of days, you should see some improvement. But on occasion, if Stephanie is checking in with you and says, hey, you need to get this kitten eye cream, what you want to do in that situation is you'll be given a cream such as this, which has a slight bit of antibiotic in it, and by putting it in the eyes, it actually clears up all of the sinuses for the kitten and helps them with the overall cold. So how do we put this cream in is the next question. If I've got a kitten that's this big, and do I have my little pink teddy bear? Somebody that little pink teddy, no, I didn't bring that one either. But what you want to do is, well, if anyone want to take a guess or demo, how would I put cream on a kitten's eye? Anyone done it before? Anyone feeling nervous about this idea? Yeah, do you want to try? Or
I'll take a guess.
Yeah?
Corner of their eyes right here.
Okay, good. So yeah, you put it in the corner of the eyes, but how would we get it into the corner of the eye? Would be the next question. Anyone take a guess? Well, here's what we want to do. So to do it, the kitten, this is our 3-week-old kitten here, okay? Purple tail and all. So what you want to do is if I come at my kitten with my cream, the kitten's going to back away. It's going to see it as a threat there, okay? So what I want to do is I could maybe wrap the kitten and make sure it feels all nice and comfortable. So and then what I want to do is instead of coming at the kitten from the front with my cream, I would come in from behind and over the top there, so the kitten doesn't really see what's coming at it basically there. And then what I do is I just gently open the eyes and I squeeze just the smallest amount in the corner of the eye there. And then I let the skin go and sometimes even just massage very, very gently the outside of that lid so that that cream gets dispersed through the eye there, okay? So we don't want to come in from the front, we want to come in from over the top very gently. You are naturally, I saw your faces when I first started talking about it, you're naturally at first going to feel nervous when you do this, but over time your confidence will grow and then it will become second hand to you. So have confidence in yourself that you can do this. And the kittens are very forgiving, thankfully. They're not going to die if you put the cream on their nose in the wrong spot, that type of stuff. So just very gently, and as you pointed out, when we want to put it in the eye, and then as the cream warms up, it will disperse. The other thing I should point out with these creams too, is they are often a little bit kind of gummy and gluey. And so what you'll end up doing is you're like, oh, the cream won't come out, and so you'll squeeze harder. And then all of a sudden you'll have all of this cream come shooting out. And so then you have way too much because you just want to put a little dab in there and maybe 1/8 of the eye's worth. And so be patient when you're waiting for the cream. I actually kind of sit there and I squeeze it a little bit and then I wait a couple of seconds or 10 seconds and then I squeeze a little bit more so that I'm not wasting all my cream. There, Stephanie's shaking her head very knowingly about how it can be stuck there. Yeah. So that's the flu, so URIs essentially there, so upper respiratory infections. Another medical concern that kittens can get is pneumonia, as I mentioned before. This is where the URI has dropped down more into their lungs and your kitten will stop being interested in food, their temperature will go up, and as I mentioned, they use their scent to find a lot of their food and find their surroundings and get their bearings. So pneumonia has signs of loss of appetite, weight loss, low energies, sometimes a too low temperature, sometimes they're too low, or a temperature that's too high, and it can be caused by aspiration of formula. So if you are new to bottle feeding and perhaps the formula has gone into the lungs of the kitten and then they spew out or vomit up, and you see the formula come out through that nose, that's a kitten that's aspirating there. And so be really mindful to keep those kittens super warm after that happens so that it doesn't develop into pneumonia. But if it does, these are the types of signs to give you those clues. So when you do your charts, remember we gave you those charts in the basic class, if you make a mistake, say the kitten does aspirate, write that down. Don't be embarrassed or ashamed of it, but it's important to know so that if when you come to Stephanie, you can say, listen, there's something wrong with the kitten. When we did our 4 o'clock feeding earlier today, we aspirated and now the temperature's doing this. So make those types of notes on there. That can be your godsend, the chart there. Keep the quarantine the kitten if you suspect them there, and as I mentioned, keep them really warm, and then let Stephanie know if you're seeing these signs so that she can make an assessment or bring them into the medical, and then maybe give you some antibiotics there. Okay. Slightly older kittens, interestingly, the one I had that had the high temperature, another sign of pneumonia is the cat got very depressed there. So depression is another sign for pneumonia. Let's talk about poop here. So we were looking at this end of the kitten. Let's now turn around and have a look at this end here. And this is a common poop chart to see the colors here, because your example is in black and white, but you can just Google it, the poop chart. And you'll see here that if you have essentially raisins that are coming out, that's a severely constipated kitten. If they are lumpy and sausage-like, it's mild constipation. If it looks like a Tootsie Roll, that's pretty good. Okay, so essentially you want your kitten to be pooping out Tootsie Rolls. When they first start, depending on what formula, the Tootsie Roll might be mustard color, and that's because they're getting out of their system, mama's milk, that type of stuff. But generally they should be turning to a dark yellow brown color over time as they grow here. If it's obviously if it's diarrhea here, it's kind of pretty self-explanatory. And you may recall me talking about doing the bath butts. If you have a kitten with diarrhea, sometimes it's appropriate just to wash gently the bottom of the kitten, blow dry it, and then keep them warm, tuck them up again, because that diarrhea can burn their very fragile skin there. And if you have a kitten that has diarrhea and it's lasting for, say, I don't know, maybe 4-6 hours, really keep a close eye on that kitten, because they can dehydrate very, very quickly with that dehydration stuff. Okay, so keep doing those snap tests there. I would be snapping them every couple of hours to see if it's improving or if it's not, because the diarrhea is, the kittens, they are so vulnerable. The babies under 3 weeks and under, 10 hours can make a huge difference in what's going on with them. So reach out and let Stephanie know if you have diarrhea that's just too much, or you're concerned about it, or it's not improving at all. Okay, so if you're around this area here. The constipation, you may recall I talked about having just a tiny touch of olive oil, and I literally will run a little pinky over the top of my olive oil bottle and then put it in the roof of the kitten's mouth. No more, no teaspoons or cod liver oil or anything, and then that will just shake its way through, and that kitten will not have diarrhea. Or we also talked about just gently rubbing their stomach. I just rub them gently in a circular motion as I go around and rub their intestines just a little bit there too. Okay. So that's our poop chart here. So honing in on diarrhea just a little bit more, observe and look at the diarrhea. Is it gel-like? Is it watery? How frequently are they doing it? Do they have really smelly stools? Is there a little bit of blood in that diarrhea? And so this is where it's helpful to have, if the kitten is pooping, to use a clean piece of toilet paper and to capture what they are expressing, and then kind of looking at it and examining it there. And you may soon join the poop discussion club, because when I first started fostering, I could literally talk about kitten poop for hours on end and the different ways and the things and what it meant. And I'm sure Stephanie gets a gazillion photos of kitten poop that
Do not
Guilty.
do not be afraid to send me pictures of food.
But it's a very good indicator, and for all animals actually, what's going on with them, because they can't talk there. And so over the years I've learned to look at what's coming out of my animals' butts, and it tells me what's going on with that animal basically there. So as I mentioned, you take it for granted that they've got worms, which is why we start deworming them on a regular basis as soon as we can. But do reach out to Stephanie if you have questions, especially with the diarrhea and you've got a bottle baby or two on with you there. Feel free to jump in too if you have any questions, because I know I'm kind of running through this material a little bit fast for a smaller class. The next one is panleukemia. And this is essentially a blood type, I'm trying to think of the words to describe it. It's like a virus that gets in the blood of the kittens here. And this one is difficult to deal with if you are a foster parent, and normally it's not the good outcomes for the kittens here. Some of the examples of what can happen is you'll have kittens that will just sit there. For me, the big signal that they might have panleukemia is they just won't settle. They will cry and cry and cry. I had a group of panleukemia kittens, and I literally would tiptoe through my condo, and as soon as they heard me, they would all start up again because they couldn't settle, they weren't sleeping, they have a lot of pain from panleukemia, and it's because what's happening is all through their digestive tract, the virus is causing a lot of irritation, and they don't get nutrients from their food as a result, and so they start losing weight. They have very high fevers. Sometimes if it's really bad, they have vomiting and diarrhea here, and severe dehydration. So kittens, if they have panleukemia at 3 weeks of age, if they even get to that, they'll sit at a bowl, but they won't drink it there because it just hurts even to have water come in their body. So if this is the case, probably, especially if you're kind of maybe a new foster, if you have a kitten that has panleukemia, then reach out to Stephanie, and probably in this case the medical team would take over, because they're incredibly difficult to get them through the survival rates on panleukemia. So yeah, go ahead.
It's also highly contagious. So your shoes can track it around if you have one kitten, if it's on your clothes. So it's really easy to transfer from one cat to another, even if you have adult cats. So it's highly contagious.
So that one's a difficult one. Another one is this one. I have more confidence in, I shouldn't say confidence, but this one I know you would be able to handle more, because this one we can handle through deworming here at Humane for you. The panleukemia, probably they need to be in incubators and all that kind of stuff.
Generally with Pan-Luke, we keep them here in the shelter. So with coccidia that we're about to talk about, we generally try to help walk you through that.
So with coccidia, this one, you'll know if you have a kitten with coccidia because you can smell them from the other room there. So the number one trait of coccidia is how stinky they are. So they'll go to the bathroom, and then it will envelop the room there. So that's the number one sign for me. A kitten might have coccidia. Or they cry when they defecate. So that's also another big sign there. They have a really sensitive belly. And then again, we have the dehydration, the high temperatures, that type of stuff, vomiting, lethargy, and what I call clay poo, or they call it clay poo. So instead of a Tootsie Roll, we're getting this string of light brown clay stuff there, and it may even include some streaks of blood and all that kind of stuff. So if this is the case, isolate and reach out to your foster coordinator, Stephanie, here, who will look at those photos. Now, on occasion, you might have a kitten where you'll need to give them fluids, because perhaps you are working with Stephanie and the medical team with a kitten with coccidia, and they say, okay, we're ready for you to take the kittens back, we've done the examination, and we want you to give them some fluid support. So this is through sub-Q fluids, meaning you're going through the subcutaneous levels of the skin, okay? So how do we do this? So why do we do this? It is a way to rehydrate the kittens. It's beyond just formula. It helps them to get that saline formula into their bodies. The amount will be determined by the medical team here. So they'll say, hey, we want you to give 3 ounces of sub-Q every 6 hours or whatever, that they will give you a formula and all the supplies. What will happen is you'll get a bag, just like, has anyone ever been in the hospital and they have an IV bag next to you? Literally, it's almost, well, it is the same stuff, I think. It was just the saline formula. Mm-hmm. And so what you want to do is warm them, so warm it to room temperature, those sub-Q fluids there. And then you want to put a needle into the kitten to put the fluids into them. So let's pretend I have a needle, a sharp needle on the end of this, which again, the medical team will give you the needle size. And do you remember when we were talking about how the mamas, they carry the kittens around by the neck there, and we do the snap test to check for dehydration? That same skin here, where it's baggy, is where we would insert the fluids, okay? So what we want to do this on a kitten here, and I have a picture on the next one, this is our tent on the kitten, okay, is in that area here where the triangle is where I can give my sub-Qs, where the skin is more loose, okay? So what I want to do is I want to warm my fluids, and then I want to pull back on my syringe and put in the appropriate amount of fluid into my syringe here. And just like you see on the movies, we squeeze a little bit out and make sure we get rid of oxygen there. And then we hold up the tent and come at a horizontal level, so we're the same angle as what their back is there, okay? And we will come in, we always want to make sure that the bottom of the needle is on the bottom, and so the opening of the needle is at the top. That kind of just makes that easier to get in. If you don't 100% get that right the first goes, it's fine, it will still go in. And what will happen is you're going to feel super nervous and worried, and you're going to think, oh my God, I'm going to kill the kitten and paralyze it. But that's maybe if you went that way. And so keep it horizontal. And then what will happen is you'll push the needle in, it will be sharp, and so push it in firmly and you'll feel resistance there, okay? But keep going, break through that, and then you'll feel this little tiny second, and once you feel that little second one, you know you're in there. And then you just gently squeeze through and put the fluid into the kitten there, okay? And you might get a tiny amount that dribbles out, but not really. And you will see a bump under the kitten's skin when you're finished, or camel hump there in that area. And what will happen is over the next 10-15 minutes or so, that fluid will go through and hydrate the kitten there. Any questions about how to do that there? Okay. So again, you are going to feel nervous. Feeling nervous is normal. It's about confidence. Over time, you will gain confidence. I'm going to back up a slide here. So it's a firm, gentle push. You'll have a bubble that will form under the skin, and then keep checking them for that dehydration. So if you're giving them the sub-Qs and they're still showing signs of that dehydration with the snap test, it's still not working, then we reach out to Stephanie, our foster coordinator.
So, and mostly here at Humane, you're most likely not going to be doing this. I did want to keep it in the presentation in case, you're doing work, on the side. But most of the time, pinch the tents, let me know, okay, I'm thinking my kitten is dehydrated, and we'll just have you come in for fluids. We usually have staff here, and if it's outside of hours without staff, then we are partnered with an emergency vet that you can get fluids done.
So, we know I always love my questions at the end of my presentations. So when should we intervene here? Is it if the kitten stops nursing? if their weight gain is slower than their siblings, if they make a clicking sound when we pat them, if we've aspirated them and they have trouble breathing, if they have trouble bottle feeding, or if it fails the tent test. So which ones of these do we think we should intervene? So if a kitten stops nursing, yes, intervene. If their weight gain is slower, something just to monitor. If they click and make clicking sounds, that's good. It means that they're happy. Aspirated trouble breathing, absolutely. That's a kitten in trouble there. And so clear the nose, use the little, the nose drops, that type of stuff. Put them around that steam, source of steam. If they have trouble bottle feeding, that's something that you, again, just want to kind of monitor there, because you do want them to be gaining weight and getting those sugars and then proteins and fats from the formula. So that's something to really watch out for. And if it fails the tent test, that's one where we intervene as well. So trouble bottle feeding, yes. Aspirated, yes. Okay. These first two, we just can kind of monitor there. So we have kittens in our house, and we have a newborn. So this little kitten, eyes closed, so that means it's under a week. And I have this beautiful cat at home that just loves to be a daddy to the kitten. Should I give him my week-old kitten to lick and groom and clean? And some of you are saying no. Why would we not do that?
Because he could be infectious.
Yeah, the kitten could be infectious, and the kitten probably and most likely has worms and hasn't been dewormed yet, could have panleukemia, all kinds of fun stuff is going on there. And so do keep your kittens away from the other felines and animals in your house until they've had those first couple of rounds of dewormer, and even the first shot. So when they've had their first shots and you know you're in a contained space with house cats, your indoor house cats, that's when maybe you can socialize them, but only if your cats are used to them, kind of thing. But otherwise, especially not the littlies, because I look at them as kind of, you know, first of all, paperweights, but secondly, they're little toddlers with there's all kinds of stuff going on. They don't wash their hands. So I definitely keep the crews apart there. What about this one? Eye cream. The kitten is already telling us the story. No! Don't come at me like that. Okay? So we learn to come from behind there. So immediate interventions. Okay? If you're at home and a kitten fails the tent test, and Stephanie mentioned that they had the urgent care, but what you could do is maybe give them a little bit of flavorless Pedialyte via a syringe, not with the needle, but just a syringe there. And just get them a small amount and let them swallow it, and just that sometimes gets them to the vet for you or gets them into the shelter. Okay, and what it does is it hydrates them and gives them electrolytes so that they have those fluids starting there. And then also look at the gums, as I mentioned earlier. If they're pale or white, some people like giving Caro syrup, which is what I think, I don't have that in my house. It's an American thing, a Caro syrup.
Yeah, most people aren't going to have that, so.
What is that? That's that clear syrup that
It's
people...
real sweet.
Yeah, or I have on standby just a kitten Nutrical tube, and so I just give them a little bit of Nutrical there. At worst, before I even had that, I would just give them a tiny bit of honey just to keep their sugars up, because their sugars and all that can drop. And also if their temperature is going down drastically, that's immediate. That's a kitten in trouble there. So their temperature is really important too. So you can also, as a way to feel a kitten's temperature, is always kind of like feel their nose and their ears and stuff like that. And you'll see and notice that after you bathe your kittens, their temperature's naturally just a slight bit lower, but so just keep them warm. They put them on heating pads with little cuddles, that kind of stuff. So we talked earlier about panleukemia and being so highly contagious. Clean, clean, clean. So if you have not got the vet spray, you can bleach, use a 1:32 ratio of bleach, so that's half a cup for every gallon of water of bleach. and just bleach your litter boxes and cages constantly here. Clean, disinfect everything. You can put white vinegar in your washing machine that gets rid of ringworm and all that type of stuff there. You might consider even steam cleaning. Some people, they like having steam cleaned and they steam clean their sofas and all that kind of stuff there. But again, see, I wouldn't let my kittens out in my house if they were in that environment, because then I just wouldn't do it.
If we have sick kittens, definitely recommend an acclimation room to contain all of that. And then clean.
Yeah, less to clean for sure. And you can also get rescue wipes. Sometimes they're given to you from Humane, but you can also buy them at Amazon, or a rescue spray there. And I just do the whole bleach thing. I just bleach everything, wipe everything, floor, everything. And then I let my house have a rest. And I have a rest before I'm ready to put my hand up for more kittens. So just some overall developmental issues. We're almost done here. To touch on is sometimes we have some congenital abnormalities, which is where we might, for example, have the kitten that doesn't have the ping pong head, or I at one time had a wobble kitten where it would wobble and not quite walk properly there, and so you might have kittens like that. Sometimes they have seizures, and generally it's because the mother was feral, they were malnourished, and so the kitten didn't really have congenital that genetic good strong start in life there. Sometimes they fail to gain weight, and that's a red flag, or just generally will just stop nursing. So we call this some of these fall under a fading kitten syndrome, which is this general umbrella term that captures for what can happen to a kitten, and really we just don't know why that kitten is failing to thrive. And the reality is, if you're starting to come down and look after the prenatals, which are the 0 to 3 weeks old, some of them aren't going to survive. It's just a sad and unfortunate part of the rescue work. And if that happens, find support from other fellow rescue people. Talk to Stephanie or the staff or other foster parents in the support groups on Facebook through Humane, and know that you have people there that can give you kind words and support and help you to feel encouraged. If I had stopped doing this after my first kitten death, I wouldn't be here today sharing and helping other kittens. And so it's about realizing that sometimes it might not be the outcome that we wanted for that kitten there, even though we tried our best, or maybe we made mistakes because we didn't have training workshops like this. But know that you're part of a community. We are all here to support you, and you're not alone. And sometimes it's just Mother Nature doing Mother Nature things. Sometimes mama cats intentionally will abandon their kittens. The pan leukemia crew I had, ironically a vet gave them to me because they didn't want to do kittens that young, and the mama had abandoned the kittens. It's because the mama knew. So mamas sometimes know what's going on there. So it's a learning curve. So your confidence and feeling comfortable with this will come over time. So you said that you've done all this great work with ferals, and so when you first started out, you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? and now you have confidence and you're giving great insights. So ask for help, keep Stephanie updated, and as I mentioned before, do a daily weight chart, and know that, as I mentioned, there is sometimes a really high mortality rate, especially the babies and preemies and things like that there. And know that it's tiring and challenging, but absolutely worth it. When I have seen, I had a little kitten from a feral mama, and when she was one of 3 that survived. Her other 2 siblings, they were preemies and they didn't survive, but she did. And little Tonglin grew up to be this feisty little grey cat that had such an attitude, and she would pow you with her paw. She didn't want to do something. So those types of success stories, and knowing that we're trying to help, is what keeps me going, and certainly with Stephanie too.
Absolutely.
So, any questions or thoughts that you want to share with what we covered here? Yeah. And so be kind to yourself and do your best, and over time get confidence, and you know, I've taught people how to do the sub-Q fluids, and then they never want to do it ever. But it is just, it's an up and down, but it's an incredibly rewarding, challenging moment. For me, if I have a kid and that passes, to be there when it crosses over, I know, and I reflect on everything I did and how I helped. And at least they died in a happy place instead of on the side of a freeway or something. Yeah, this is true. My first rescue group I was with, someone said, you know, really every day that they're alive until they're 6 weeks of age is amazing. And part of me also has that attitude where sometimes, as you say, you can become exhausted and overtired. And remember I taught us the trick of when mamas go hunting, so we can get that 5-hour stretch in. Remember that one?
Yeah.
And I have an attitude where I look over next to my bed and I'm like, oh, you're still here? Great, another day in front of us. What are we going to do today? What color of people are you going to give me? And I have learned to be in the moment with that kid, because they have a predetermined journey, and we're there to join them for however long or short. What I have done too is my son, I've recruited him. So I've trained him, because he's a late night owl. And
Can
so,
I borrow him next time?
so against his will, I train him, and he does the 12 or the 1 o'clock in the morning feeding. So I'll go to bed at 9 or 10, 11 maybe, and I'll get a good sleep.
Right.
And then I pick up the shifts the next day there. And so sometimes it's okay, building on that, don't feel that you have to be in front of charge of the kid 100%. If you've got a supportive family member in the household that maybe you can send to the trainings here, that they could do an occasional feeding for you so that you stay sane, because you have to stay sane through this process as well.
Stephanie and the whole staff here held my hand all the way. It was wonderful.
And also too, I don't know if I should advocate for this or not, but Stephanie's like, what are you going to say? But what I do is I have the carry case, and I have the heating pad and the towels, and it's a gorgeous cuddle little cocoon in there. And if I have a girlfriend that says, I really need to meet you for a coffee at a cafe, I will take that carrying case, set up the thing, and I'll plug the Kitten in. And if there's no power outlet, we change cafes
Right
there, so that I still have a life.
100%, yes.
Yeah, so don't feel that you're locked away from the world for the time that the Kitten is bottle feeding. It's okay to make sure that they're still warm and safe, and electrical power will be your friend. And often, I may have mentioned this, I discreetly use that as opportunities to get the kid adopted, because if you're sitting at a cafe table and then everyone's like, oh, what's going on over there? And you will have a cluster of people. Obviously, don't let them handle the kitten.
Right.
But I'll say, you know, this kitten will be available in about 6 weeks from now, which would be June the 2nd. Would you be? And that's how I've gotten foster parents. People to adopt them.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And that's what keeps me going. I mean, I've done bottle babies, and you know, you guys, if you foster with us, you can give me your number if you want. I can give them to potential adopters. It's totally up to you guys. You guys can build that connection, and getting that adult cat that you bottle fed now today and see him like doing well, having siblings, and he's doing awesome. That's why I keep doing it.
Yeah, the photos of them climbing and destroying the trees or sitting on the Thanksgiving table, those photos are the best.
And every one of your fosters are like a foster for me, because I'm getting those photos all day long of your guys' fosters. So I get to see them go on the adoption floor, and it's why I keep coming back. Goodbye's our goal.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Any other questions while we're here? Well, thank you for coming and spending the time. Be brave. You've got this. You can do this. And
I will say, I think the biggest, best tip I got from you was the little container to put the kittens
Oh, the
into.
strawberry,
weigh
yeah,
them.
to weigh them.
And as they got bigger, if you use the containers from the rotisserie chickens,
That's the best tip I've got. Oh, yeah. I love it. Thank you.
We learn from each other every day.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you for coming, and feel free to reach out for Stephanie. Kitten season is starting. All the mamas have started popping.
absolutely. We have our cards over on the back, and apply online to be a foster if you're not already. Always reach out, even if you have questions about kittens in general. I just love helping and educating the community.
thank you guys.
Thanks, everyone.